Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmed. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace. I feel like everyone's probably so sick of me talking about bottlenecks.
No such thing.
Because I talk about it. But if you're listening to the podcast, you probably haven't heard me speak a whole lot. But boy, if you're a client and you're listening to this, you're like, man, that guy does not stop talking about bottlenecks. For good reason. Why is that, Carrie? Why does Ahmed talk about bottlenecks so much?
Ahmed, and quite frankly, all of us talk about bottlenecks so much because the one thing that we observe, right? We observe hundreds of people at any given time working through growing their business. And the one thing that is so very consistent across this entire group, across this entire community, is distraction and, not putting the focus where the focus needs to be, not, aiming at the thing that's going to get you the most bang for your buck. And so the notion of bottleneck, and there are several ways to look at this, but we use this framework around bottleneck. This is the magic sauce, the special sauce, the magic bullet that helps you figure out what it is that you need to be focusing on. And there's nothing more important than that.
So I found religion on this after reading The Goal by Dr. Ellie Goldratt. If you haven't read it, it's very long. And some people have told me that they couldn't stand it. Jennifer.
It's very 80s. You got to get past a whole bunch of interesting ways of, walking through the world that were happening at that point. But
I could not put it down. Personally, it's like 600 pages. And I swear I finished it in like a weekend. It was like I could not put it down. Okay. And if you've done an MBA, this is probably required reading in your MBA.
It was my favorite course, favorite book.
There you go. There you go. And I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
So Dr. Ellie Goldratt is kind of the modern father of the theory of constraints. He popularized the idea of the theory of constraints and bottleneck theory, in other words. And he wrote this fantastic book called The Goal, which is written in narrative form. It's a story about a plant manager in a manufacturing plant who is tasked with improving the overall net performance of the plant, the output. And the whole book is about how to think about bottlenecks, how to identify bottlenecks, how to understand bottlenecks, etc. And here's the idea. Manufacturing is a great example because it's in many ways simple, in many ways complicated. But in a manufacturing environment, let's say you've got, for a really simple example, you get 3 machines on a shop floor. Okay. And you feed a raw material into machine 1, and out of machine 3 comes a finished good. Okay. I love to use the example of mid-century modern dining tables, right? Because who doesn't love a mid-century modern dining table? So you feed in wood and out come dining tables, right? Now, obviously as a plant owner, if you're the owner, your task is to, for a given amount of raw material, maximize the output of dining tables. That's money. That's profit, right? That's what you're going to sell. And you got 3 machines that are being used in this process. And if you find that machine 1 is operating well, machine 3 is operating well, but there's constantly a delay in machine 2, right? There's material piling up behind machine 2. Machine 2 is not as fast and as efficient as machine 1. Machine 3 is constantly waiting for material because machine 2 is too slow, right? So machine 1 is producing things too fast for machine 2 to handle, and machine 2 is too slow to keep machine 3 busy. Where's the bottleneck? It's obvious, right? It's machine 2 is the bottleneck, right? So we can probably all agree that, dedicating engineering time to optimizing machine 1 or machine 3 is a bad idea, a waste of time, because optimizing the performance of machine 1 and 3 is not going to improve the overall output of the system because machine 2 is the bottleneck. And yet you, listener, do this every day. Don't you? Why do they do that, Carrie?
There are actually many reasons. I would say the one that we see most often, and given the audience that we're speaking to, this idea of consultants want to consult. And so, when you talk about the 3 machine production line, In this case, let's oversimplify a business, right? The machines are marketing, sales, and delivery. And what we see consultants do is continually perfect delivery. I'm going to create a new program. I'm going to adjust this. I'm going to change this. I'm going to make this better. I'm going to deliver better results. All, amazing things to do. 100%, not arguing that at all. But if you have no clients coming into machine number 3, which is delivery, then really what you're doing is just busy work, right? You are finding a way to fill your time, to feel that you're doing something that, quite frankly, you're good at. So that is always a lovely feeling. And not digging into the 2 machines in advance of that are going to drive people into the delivery component of your business so that you can actually get them results. And there are many other reasons why this happens. Some of it is just habitual, right? You kind of get sucked into something. You see a bright, shiny object and you chase it. And you think of something interesting and you do it. Or you're someone who's created a list of 67 tasks that you want to get done, and you're doing them in order instead of thinking about which one is actually going to get you the greatest amount of impact. So lots of reasons that all really boil down to not thinking it through. When you're on a production line, it might be more obvious, right? Because you can see all of the wood piling up. But it's a very different thing when you're talking about your time and your energy and your attention.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of interesting notes here around identity and expectations. So if your identity, and I think we've alluded to this in other episodes, if your identity is that of a consultant, if that's how you define yourself, it's not wrong in and of itself, but if that is the extent to how you define yourself, I am a consultant, i.e., I deliver advice and solutions for my clients, then that's what you're going to focus on, right? That's going to occupy the lion's share of your mind space and your headspace. Whereas obviously marketing, creating opportunities, sales, converting that opportunity are necessary parts of the process. But if those are not integrated effectively into your identity, how you see yourself, your self-image, you're naturally going to focus on the things that are part of your identity. And the second is expectations. So if that plant manager, which I think is still just a brilliant example to use, right? If that plant manager, if his or her job was just make sure the operation runs smoothly, which is how a lot of us think about our businesses. Yeah, just as long as it's running smoothly, things are going well, right? If the owner or the president or the CEO looked at the plant manager and said, as long as it's going smoothly, there's no big problems, there's no major issues, everyone's happy. Then so what if there's a pile up on machine 2? So what if there's a bottleneck? So what if there's suboptimal performance? If things are otherwise, no one's quitting, there's no fire, the plant's not exploding, things are getting done, we're producing dining tables, what's the big deal? And I think that's unfortunately the attitude of many business owners is like, we're making money, right? Which sure, but could it be better? Could you be extracting more value, more revenue, more results, more satisfaction from the effort that you're putting in by addressing the bottleneck?
Yeah, absolutely. So redefine the identity for me then.
You got to be an owner. It's fine that you think of yourself as a consultant because that's how the market sees you. Absolutely. Totally get it. The market sees me as a coach, trainer, expert, subject matter expert, thought leader, consultant, all those things. That is not how I define myself. I run a business first and foremost. And there's hats I wear within that business. I'm the marketer, I'm the trainer, I'm the educator in some cases. I also have a team of people that fulfill many of those roles, right? But internally, I am a business owner. Yes, my business happens to be a consulting, coaching, and training business, sure. But I'm a business owner. And my job as a business owner is to steward the resources that we have, the machines, and maximize the output of those resources for the benefit of all parties involved, right? For the staff, for the contractors, for the employees, for the clients, for the market, for myself, for my family, etc. Maximizing output is the job of an owner.
You got it. And so there's something, because I can imagine people listening to us right now trying to calculate their bottleneck if it's not something they thought of before. So what is my bottleneck? What does that mean? And I would like to throw out the caution, which is beware the false bottleneck. And this is interesting because we talk to our clients all the time, right? About what is your bottleneck. And I don't know what percentage of the time the first thing that comes to mind is actually the bottleneck that they need to be focusing on. And so, I mean, you and I have these conversations every day. What do you see as the thing that leads people to the wrong bottleneck?
There's an interesting story here, and I forget the gentleman's name. I just remembered it. Dr. Alan Barnard, who's actually a student of Dr. Ellie Goldratt. I was listening to him on a podcast telling this story about how he was working with I think they were a mining organization, very large mining organization, and they were struggling on a number of fronts. And he conducted this leadership retreat with about 100 people, big company. And the first thing he did was he asked them to all identify and agree on what is the number one metric that they care about. What is the one number that they're trying to move, that if they move that number, if they hit that goal, hit that metric, everything else gets better. Everyone's happy. And they came up with some number of, like, it was a measurement of the amount of mineral that they were going to mine, whatever the mineral was, I don't remember, right? But it was a measurement of how much they're mining. If we mine this much this year, everything's great. And then he asked them to, all those managers, all those leaders, to make a list of all the things that they're currently doing. What are the projects? What are the activities? What are the tasks? Where's your time going? Make a list of all those things and put each one on a Post-it note and put it on the wall. Okay. And let's say there were 100 things on the wall, 100 Post-it notes on the wall to start with. And then he asked them to take down all the Post-it notes that did not directly contribute to the outcome or that one metric that they said they cared about. And there were 5 or 10 Post-it notes left on the wall. And so the first mistake is not choosing a bottleneck and focusing on it. And I almost, it's almost secondary to focus on the right bottleneck. I mean, I want you to focus on the right bottleneck, absolutely, right? But what's worse than working on the wrong bottleneck is trying to solve everything at the same time and diverting your efforts and scattering your efforts so that you make no meaningful progress anywhere. That's worse. And that's the most common, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, what's interesting is how little attention and thought it takes to pull back out of that. This isn't, doesn't have to be a 3-day retreat planning process for you to figure it out. If you sit down and really look at your business from end to end, it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly that something needs attention paid to it. And to your point, whether you pick number 1 or number 2, you're going to get better and better at that. But the reality is it's just about creating a habit. It's about creating a cadence. It's about thinking this through, and it's about not getting caught up in the, having your to-do list due to you and gaining control and just ensuring that your number one most precious resource, which is your energy and your attention and your focus, is pointed at the right thing.
Now, I can make the argument, and feel free to challenge me on this, Carrie, but I can make the argument that for 99% of our listeners here, the bottleneck, the actual bottleneck, is marketing and lies within marketing.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll argue with you, but I will add to it, because often when I think, practically speaking, that is most often true. But what we find often is the bottleneck that needs to be solved first is the business owner themselves, because they have constructed their life in such a way that even when they recognize that maybe marketing is the thing, and that's often why they come to us, they're not in a position where they can figure out how to focus there, because again, they have scattered their attention to the wind, right? They're pointing in every single direction. So there is also an argument that says you've got to get yourself set up in a way that allows you to focus on the thing. Now, sometimes that is determining that marketing is the focus and, forcing your attention there, and then you'll figure out the other things kind of falling off the table. For other people, they need to find a way to remove other things from their list or from their their day to day so that they can focus on, in this case, marketing.
Yeah. Which is absolutely fine, right? Because once you identify what the bottleneck is, it's not always necessarily straightforward to tackle it straight on, right? You might find, okay, the bottleneck's in machine 2. There's some issue with the machine, but we need to find a specialist to come in and service this machine, right? So now the problem to solve is not fix machine 2, it's go find a vendor who can come in and service machine 2 who's a good fit. It's like a secondary task that's going to enable the primary task. And to your point, yeah, I mean, it's not common that we come across people, well, at least the ones that we work with, right, who don't agree that marketing is the bottleneck. If we had more opportunity, if we were talking to more of the right people, we'd convert more of that opportunity. We'd have better clients. We could exit some relationships that aren't serving us, so on and so forth, right? The benefits of marketing, think of that as machine 1 in the example, right? Machine 1 is marketing, machine 2 is sales, machine 3 is delivery. The benefits of solving for marketing have tremendous effects downstream across all the machines. But are you in a position to take advantage of those benefits and to actually solve for marketing if you're spending 40 to 50 hours on client delivery? If you're at like 100% capacity and there's no help, there's no team, you're just working full time serving clients, then how do you solve for marketing? That's the problem that we got to solve for before we can actually solve the marketing problem.
Yeah, and I think the reality is sometimes, we talked about people getting caught up in delivery, but also, if I'm going to be perfectly blunt, and I will, it's also just time spent on nonsense, right? Time spent on things that you think you need to do, time spent on things that you started doing 3 years ago, so you're still doing them all the time. Time spent on things that are not worth your time, that a $12 an hour administrative employee could support you on. And so, generally speaking, when we talk to people, there is a ton of low hanging fruit here. But in order to start to pick the low hanging fruit, you got to make the decision. And you have to, figure out what is truly, truly important. Because if you don't do that, then you are simply, putting yourself in a place where you might feel good that you're busy and, something's happening, but you're not actually driving your business.
Well, that's the trap, though. Because a lot of people just like the idea of feeling busy, acting busy. You walk by someone's office, hey, Carrie, how are you doing? So busy. You don't do this, right? I'm just using your name. So I'm totally swamped. So much going on, right? There is a feeling of importance that we attribute to busy. If I'm busy, I must be important. People need me. And we get sucked into that feeling, right? Here's my contention. If you are spending 40 hours a week on client service, client delivery, first of all, there's no way to grow the business. Like if you are committed to that as a frame, I spend 40 hours a week, fully committed, 100% utilized on client projects. You are not going to grow meaningfully. That's not going to happen because you don't have time to grow or do any marketing or do anything outside of your current relationships. And when they expire, you're in a world of trouble. However, I promise you, if you're spending 40 hours a week serving clients right now, there's 10 hours a week that are easily saved. Stop doing things, delegate them, outsource them, find more efficient ways of doing them. There's 10 hours a week guaranteed sitting there for the taking. And that 10 hours a week can be spent on the marketing. And that makes the whole cycle far more effective.